coaching techniques. I'm going to present two coaching techniques to you, which are pretty simple. One is actually really widely used. You probably seen it before, heard about it. The other one is a bit of a stretch, and it's going to push you out of your comfort zone if you actually try to use it. So that's why I added it. I didn't want to go through, active listening and all that stuff that you probably heard a million times so far. So let's start. So this is me. You obviously can see that two versions of me, one with short hair, one with long hair. There was a serious misunderstanding at a hairdresser, so that's how I ended up with this. But how did I actually end up in this situation to be here and speak to you? So going back about, it's 25 years now, I've been sitting behind the screen or in front of the screen, however you want to do. And in October, it's going to be, I think, also 25 years since I earned first money by using a computer. And basically, I never stopped after that. I have a background in electronics. I finished electronics high school. And then I started working in design and marketing. Shortly after running a small marketing agency and really liking it. I really liked working like 300 hours a month. That was really exciting for a kid that's just turned like 18, 19, 20. I don't remember what it was. But the problem was this was so far ago that I actually had to go to the army at one point. That's how long ago that was. And when I ended up there, I was introduced to a whole bunch of different people. I went outside of my bubble here in Novi Sad where I live and saw what people can actually be and how they behave and how much they know. And as somebody who was a nerd, a sci-fi nerd, an electronics nerd, somebody who did design and marketing, I did the only thing I could. I went to psychology. So it took a few years to finish psychology. It was one of the best things I did in my life. And after that, I just came back to IT again. But during all that time, there was an element of managing creeping in. I had to run the marketing agency in the army. They gave me a bunch of people to take care of. And so when I returned to IT, I didn't do development or design. I basically went into project and product management, and I've been doing it since then. So for the last too many years, I've been a project manager and a product manager. And for the last 10 years or 12 years, I've also been a C-level operations manager as a vice president of operations or a CEO that I'm currently here. If you've seen all the titles behind my name on LinkedIn, and I think Hannah used the same thing on presentations, it's actually an internal joke. I created that. I was adding one by one for months to see if somebody will notice and tell me something, and it took 3 years. So the first time somebody complained about me having, I think it's 7 or 8 titles behind my name at this point, is when I shared the talk for this conference. So that was a really interesting one. Anyway, during my long stretch as a product and project manager, I was continuously trying to learn new things and to develop. And during that time, I actually came upon coaching, found coaching, stumbled upon it. I actually didn't stumble, it cost a fortune. So you really have to think about it twice. And I'm currently in the process of getting my international certificate of coaching federation or something. But for the last 3 years or 4 since COVID, I'm not sure how many years have passed, I've been doing coaching with my team members, clients, and trying to spend as much time as I can in that field, especially trying to target executive coaching and product managers. So let's get right into it. Is coaching just another agile framework? Short answer is no. The long answer is still no, but because coaching doesn't have enough acronyms. So to be a proper agile framework, you have to have acronyms. That's how you develop a framework. I'm just kidding. I really like acronyms, and I'm trying to develop a special field where you're using acronyms to create proverbs. So you can see down here it says invest smart to be safe. It's a good joke for me, so sorry for everybody else. So what is coaching actually? It's a collaborative process aimed to enhance individuals or teams. You can do individual coaching or team coaching, performance, learning, and fulfillment of that person or team. And this is an interesting one that most of you in development or product will recognize. It's focused on goal setting, action, reflection, learning, and readjusting. So it sounds pretty similar to what we do in different agile frameworks. So we set a goal, we dissect it, we work on it, we reflect, and then we reiterate on what we figured out or didn't figure out. So in that case, it's pretty similar. Now, I wanted to go a bit more into detail just to introduce everybody to coaching and maybe get more coaches out of the people here. So we have a couple of comparison options. So the left side is agile development, the right side is coaching. I try to emphasize it with this beautiful design. Thank you. So it goes adaptability and continuous learning. In agile development, we basically have iterative cycles, sprints, reflections to adapt and optimize the product. In coaching, we have pretty much the same thing. It's actually almost the same thing. It's a weekly or bi-weekly, or just like sprints, meetings where you set goals, work on goals, get feedback, and improve. Collaboration, communication, again, pretty similar things. In Agile, you're emphasizing some kind of meetings, reviews, alignments. In coaching, you rely on open communication between coaching and coachee, again, to try to align toward some goals. Individuals and interactions. Here in Agile development, we focus on building shared understanding, fostering sense of ownership, accountability, trying to give the product to the team, have them work on it, try as a product or as a project manager to stand back and let the team do its work. In coaching, it's actually almost the same, where you're valuing what that person does, the coachee, and how they do it without you trying to interfere too much. And of course, you're just like in Agile, you're putting that person above processes, tools, and everything boring. And as I said a couple of times so far, so both of these setups are just incremental. So in Agile, we develop a product through iterations and feedback, and it's exactly the same thing in coaching. You develop a person's needs or wants or goals or projects through iterations, through meetings, and you follow that process, implementing what the person has learned during the previous period of time. So now that we covered that, it sounds pretty similar. It sounds pretty easy. So, but how does it actually work? So what coaching is, for those of you who haven't been in a coaching session or in coaching training or something, I can give great advice in sense that you just go to YouTube and search for coaching sessions. There's a couple of them in Serbian, also in English, and you can just see how one of the sessions work. But it's actually pretty easy. You just click your heels together 3 times and pray there is no place like home, and eventually something will happen. But in reality, it's just 2 people meeting up. One is a coach, the other one is a coachee. The coachee has a problem, project, a need of some kind that he wants to sort. And you work with him. And for the product people, listen carefully, you recognize a whole bunch of things here. You work with him to try to develop that problem or project, try to break it up into steps, try to isolate different parts of it. then go deeper into that and try to get the most you can from coachee or for a client. I'm going to use those back and forth all the time. And once you actually figure out, it's not you, once the client actually figures out what he wants to do, you lay out a process, a roadmap, if you want, of how he will achieve that. And you start working together on that. So just the meetings themselves have a structure, have some artifacts, have some reports that you have to pull from Jira, but it's actually pretty similar to what the development process is. So one of the most important things in coaching that isn't that obvious in development or in product, but it's actually pretty similar. It's called rapport. And you don't read the last T. It's like gourmet or ballet. So rapport is just another weekly report. It's not, but it actually refers to a connection or to a special kind of bond of working contract between a coach and coachee. It's really similar to something that a product person would develop with their client. You have to set the base of harmony, trustworthiness, cooperation, basically some kind of friendship where you have a completely open communication, no stops, no blockades, no worrying about all the different stuff. And I break it down here a bit more, just so you understand how the coaching people actually look at rapport. So the importance of it is, as I said, establish trust, establish openness, foster mutual respect and understanding, enhance communication, facilitate successful coaching outcomes. Basically, we say in coaching, if you're not able to develop rapport with your client, there's no point in going into the session. And in some cases, if that continues to be a problem, so if you don't have complete mutual respect and understanding and trustworthiness, there's no point in working with that client. It's something actually a bit different. So in coaching, if it doesn't work, it's better to have the client find a different coach. While in development, if you're in outsource, you're probably stuck with that client and you have to suffer through it. Strategies for building rapport, and these are basically the same things you'll find in all of the product and project management books. It's exactly the same thing, same verbiage. It's active listening, showing empathy, positive body language, maintaining eye contact. It's just being out for them and allowing them to connect with you. Really being in the presence, or bringing in that space and trying to understand what the person is trying to tell you. Coach isn't a consultant. You don't actually, that's probably the biggest difference between the two. Coach doesn't actually give anything to the client except being there to support them in their journey and using a bunch of tools, trying to help out, to visualize, to understand, and then to be there to provide feedback, to follow, and to try to push the agenda until the project is completed. If you think about the product this conference is about, its importance for product, it's fostering open communication and collaboration, as we said, build trust and mutual respect, encourage innovative problem solving. This is all pretty clear. I'm sure you read these same sentences a whole bunch of times in all the different Scrum, Kanbans, waterfalls, and similar. So this is the first of the techniques I wanted to showcase to you. If you ever attended a coaching session, this was probably the first tool that was used by the coach. And it's also used in a whole bunch of other different fields, not just coaching. But I found it really helpful in working with clients, regardless if it's project or product. It's a tool that basically allows you to assess and evaluate a whole bunch of things, but in a really visual way and contrasting the presence and the future. I'll go more in detail about it, but this is how it's actually done. It's called balance wheel or wheel of life or wheel of time. It's not called Wheel of Time, but there's now a really popular show on Amazon Prime, so you can probably remember it by that. I'm not sure the show is that good, but it's Wheel of Time. There you go. So how usually coaches use this? Once you come in to a coaching session, the first one is usually just meeting up and figuring out what you want, how you want, why you want, and stuff like that. And then this is a tool where you start with. So a coach would tell you, okay, let's put you in a circle of your life, a wheel of life. There you go. And I want you to list the most important things in your life. So here on the right side, you can actually see what's usually what people usually pull out or what coaches try to drive them to evaluate, because it usually represents most of the things that people want to work on. So if you think about your life and what are the elements of it, or if you think about your product and what are the features of that product, you have here career, business, family and friends, finance, romance, health, social, professional, spiritual development, and physical environment. Yeah, it's sort of missing fitness, probably. Huh? Yeah, most of us are missing fitness. That's the problem. I'm kidding. So the thing is, once you figure out what the elements of that client or that person, of course, of the coachee or the client or the person, really important elements of their life are, you put them on the circle right here, like this. And the next step is, again, go through them and ask them to evaluate at this point in time in their life, in present, how would you rate, for example, your career from 1 to 10? And the client would usually say, well, I don't know, I think it's 5. It could have been better. I haven't got a salary raise in years. Damn it, I think it's actually 4. I really hate my boss. I want to leave this company. Then you go on to the next one, family and friends. A client can say, oh, it's 9. I have a great relationship with my wife, great relationship with my kids. I really like spending time with them. That's probably the best part of my life, and so on. So you go through this and you get something we call a balance wheel. Why a balance wheel? So if all of these elements are actually at the same level, the wheel is balanced, or your life is balanced. But if you have drops in like home office, like here, but you can more think about it. I have a great relationship with my wife and kids, but we have a one thing family, one job, one payment, one salary family. So the finances are really tough, or we don't have social interactions. We don't see our friends or family or whatever. So that's a 2. This is a 2. This is an 8. And once you go through the whole thing, it actually gives a visual representation of that person's life. And that visual aspect is really important. And I'll mention it a couple of times later. Now that the person has actually done that, you can reflect on it, go through it, but then you push it a bit further. And the element of pushing it further is actually what gives the greatest value here. And what does it mean? So what you will do after this exercise is tell them, okay, so let's see where you want to be in a year, in 2 years, where you want to be at the end of this coaching phase, or where you want to be at the end of the roadmap, where you want to see your product in a year, where do you think you will be in. And then you go through these again and have them mark it again. So you would get a representation of where they are right now but also where do they want to be. And that difference, so if they had a family of, if they had finance at 2 and they want to have their finances at 9, that's a clear sign where do you want to work on most and what's going to be important to get their life in balance. So how can you actually use this in product? Well, easy, of course. So how I use it right now, there's 2 main scenarios where I use it. And since I'm in outsourcing and my company is basically either outsourcing or working on our own products, we get either completely new products or we get into products that other people have already developed or that are going into phase 2, version 2 of a product, or what we call rescue cases where a previous company basically bailed out or didn't do what was required or something happened. So it's up to us to fix the whole thing. So for new products, we basically use the same thing. We change what's written here. So it wouldn't be career, business, family, and so on. It would be features or elements, or if it's a platform, it would be different parts of the platform. So do you want the web presence first, or if you have web presence, you have mobile, you have admin, you have marketing channels, and all of that, social channels. You then lay that out on a balance wheel and see where the person wants to be or where it is right now. Actually, it's not a person in this case. We're now switched to product. So where the product is right now, where the product will be in a year time, for example. That's the most basic case. And why it's helpful. So we have a whole bunch of tools just in product that we can use to, assess the product, assess the important things. It's all a bunch of spreadsheets and visualizations and Miro and stuff like that. But since I've been working with balance wheel or wheel of time, I found that people really like it because it's so simple and visual and you can easily see the discrepancies. And so this basically helps you, like you can create from the data you get from a balance wheel, you can create an importance matrix of which features elements are most important. You can actually create a whole roadmap just by looking at what's the most important for that product or for the users of those products or in any case you want. So you can just use that data and create a basic roadmap of development of that product. The other case where I found it even more useful, and which in most cases I actually use it for, is if we're taking over a product from a different company. And in the past few years, we had quite a bunch of what we call REST projects, which is somebody else has been developing it for some time and something happened. They don't want to work with that company anymore, or a million other reasons, right? And we end up with a product that usually has absolutely no documentation. As always, we get code and maybe some Figmas if we're happy. In that case, I go and talk to the client and we use a balance wheel to actually figure out where the product is right now. And again, what's important for that person or what's important for their users or what's the next thing to be done. And of course, you would always use data. You would always use analysis of different kinds. You would always use feedback, tests, interviews with the users and all of that. But this is actually to bridge the gap between you and the client and try to understand what the hell am I supposed to do here as a product in the next 6 months. Yeah. So this is an example of, and you can find these as templates in Excel or in Google Sheets, where you can visually represent it and easily update it. So this is a case of a product that's being taken over. So currently we laid out, I think this is a mobile app. We laid out all the elements of the app. where they are right now. Talked about it. So support and maintenance is really low. Security is really high. Integration is so-so, customization is really high. But if you have an app that's highly customizable by users, but there's no support, that's an obvious no. That's something you have to work on. And you can see that this thing isn't balanced. So these are the most important elements of that product, but you can see it's not balanced. So the next thing, as we talked before, is to take that user and drive him through the same thing, but now, okay, we're the new company, we're taking over the product, we have 6 months to create the best mobile app in whatever niche you're trying to go into. And then we get a new layout, we get a new balance wheel, we get new data that then represents something that is a bit more balanced. And this is something that gives you clear indication where you need to go and work first. If integration is 4 points between, if support and maintenance is 2-3 points between, that's something that you should focus on and start work from there. As I said, in all the cases, you again will use data from different apps and from clients and users and analytics and all that, but this is a really simple and yet visual representation of how to use it. All good things come in pairs. So what the hell is this now? Well, you can actually use this same element, but in pairs. What does that mean? So imagine a situation where you're trying to get information from your client, what's the next set of features you're going to work on. And they're not sure. Again, they have the data and everything, but at the end of the day, they have to make a decision. So this is a next step that you can implement into your work with a client to try to showcase them what's going to be the interesting one. In that case, we don't actually have a now and 6 months or goal level or in a year. What you actually do is you create a balance wheel for each of the features that will actually have the same, it's user experience, value for the user, time to implement, time to market, important things for what the important things to that feature. And then you compare them, you visually compare two features on those elements, and you sort of try to help that client in making the decision. So in fancy terms, it says, utilize the balance wheel to conduct a comparative analysis of different options or sets of product features. Again, you do, we covered this, but again, you do the same thing. You go through each of the features, give them 1 to 10, and then if they have visual representation, they can say, okay, we want to go with A, or we want to go with B, or we want to test A this way and test B this way, and just try to drive that interaction and force the wheel. That's a good one. So force the wheel to keep turning because it's a balance wheel. So it's fun. The next thing I wanted to cover, and we have maybe 10 more minutes, so is actually, do we have any questions regarding this? So how do you get the data for product balance wheel? From the client, data interviews, influence usage of the product, combination of all that. It would actually be a combination of all that, but it depends what you want to achieve at that point in time. So in some cases, you can actually ignore the basic data and just try to get the information from the client, see what the client wants, or the product is in that phase of development where you still don't have user feedback, user analytics, all of that. So you're at a crossroads in the roadmap where during development you figured out something isn't going to work, the UI isn't there, UX isn't there, the development is a problem, you ran into a technical problem with, for example, if you're doing development in a language, you can run into product of implementation or connection to other apps similar like this. Or, what I had a couple of times happen is during one of the features of the product is dependent on an outside service. And by the time we get to that element of the product, that service is gone. the company goes down, the product went to another price range, it's not viable anymore to use, and similar. So completely, it's a great question. You can use both of it. You can try to combine it. You can try to separate it intentionally to try to just get more information from your client, or to just get a feel. There's something that's happened to me so many times over the years, is when the client just wants to push something and you have to confront them with the data, and you're trying to figure out, so what the hell he actually wants? Here's the data, so what do you want? And then you try to push him through a balance wheel, and you actually see what's important, that one thing that's really important to him, which maybe isn't covered by the data, or could be a million things. Thank you for the question. That's a great one. The end is near. Or what we call is the life after the roadmap. So this one, as I said before, is a bit of a stretch. It's not something you can use with every kind of client. You really have to have a good relationship with the client, and you have to be free to use this, or feel free to use this, or be really confident. Actually, you don't have to. You can just try it out and see what happens. The world isn't going to burn down. And it's the end of the world anyway. So it's called stakeholders exercise. Again, a term that most of you are familiar. And it's used to reignite the flame of product development. In coaching, it's actually used, if I go back to where we started. So if you set a goal with your coachee, and that goal can be short, it can be simple, or it can be really long-standing. For example, I had clients that wanted to, take care of a problem with their dog. The dog is always barking at people or something like that. So that's a 2, 3, 4 week of getting the dog to a proper trainer or something like that. They want to redecorate their offices. So again, it's a 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks process for them to actually figure out what they want, get hired, get someone to do it, overview it, all that. But you can also have goals which are pretty long. For example, when I was going through coaching, my coaching goal was to become a coach. So that's not 2, 3 weeks, that's 2, 3, 4 years. So when you have goals that are like that, and we have the same thing in product development, when you have a product that's been going on for months and months and months, and the roadmap is never ending, and you're running into all kinds of problems with development, you're running into all kinds of problems with the market, you have competitors showing up, and your client is basically done. He has been working with you for now a year. The end is near of the roadmap, and you need to figure out what to do. You see that they're done. You see that they're not there anymore. You don't see the spark in their eyes, or either in yours. You're fed up with the whole thing. That's where the stakeholder exercise comes in. And what does it actually mean? You use it to re-inspire people to connect them back to the project they were working on. You try to re-motivate them. You try to bring some light and reignite the sparks, the flame, and all of that stuff. And how do you actually do that? Why I said this is a bit out of your comfort zone. This is something that coaches usually use, but in products, if you sit down with a client, you need to be able to tell them, okay, how about we've been in this for 2 years. The product still isn't out. And how can we help you? Try to imagine the product is finished. Try to imagine all of the development, deployment, user, market problems have been solved, and they have been solved successfully. The product is out, people started using products or businesses started using products. We're getting money. The company is doing great. The product is doing great. We did everything we could. It all turned out great. All the stakeholders are happy. Money is flowing in. Imagine that. And you drive them literally through that. You force them to imagine that and tell you what they're seeing. So what's actually happening around you at that point? Once you put them in that situation where they're going to start feeling nice and cozy and happy, and you'll see a smile on their faces, you then push it. You push it further and try to get even more out of it. You try to visualize the next step. You try to visualize what's going to happen, not now when the product is out. That's the present time. So we're happy, everything's good. Now try to visualize what's going to happen in a year. You're growing your user base. The user base is 200% of what was expected. The product is doing great. You're earning so much money, you have no idea what to do with it. All your stakeholders are super happy. Your users are super happy. You're on the front page of New York Times or whatever is currently interesting. And you just continue pushing that, and you can continue it for years and years in the future until you see that you push the limit a bit too far. But you try to force them to imagine what kind of impact that product will create. It can be a user app that's going to change lives. It can be a health app that's going to save so many kids or so many babies or so many people. It can be a research project that's going to bring water to Saharan Africa. It can be a million other things that you just need to show to your client what's going to bring, what's going to happen when they actually finally see that and the money starts pouring in. And it's a bit of a stretch, you can see, but it actually really reignites the flame. It helps them. And you can visualize that this is one of the elements we did in one of the coaching sessions. I think I don't remember where I have this from. But you actually limit it. You say, so this is 6 months from now, what's happening? This is a year from now, what's happening? This is 5 years from now, what's happening? And you keep the positive attitude and you keep the pressure on, this is all going to work out. Everything's going to be fine. It's not the end of the world. And just by doing this, the whole point, as I said here at the beginning, the whole point here is to reignite the flame of product development. And I think we're at the last slide. So I hope you got something interesting from this. If not something that would help you in your day-to-day work or life, I hope I've been able to bring coaching a bit closer to product and project and development people. So it's been a real honor. If you have any questions, please shoot. My story with the balance wheel. Yelena, it's okay for me to read out the questions. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Nice story with the balance wheel, but you also know from practice that clients usually push for something that's very specific about their product. And they want that part to be awesome, 9 or 10, and everything else just to be good enough to support this specific feature. So pretty much hard to align. Yeah, but that's where you actually try to convince them and show them what the balance means, So one feature, and we all know this from experience, one feature isn't going to create a product or break a product. It's really a low number of times that actually has happened. But the important thing about balance wheel is to provide them with a visual representation that's not an Excel, that's not a chart of some sort. It's just, this is it. So if this is so far out from everything else, something is wrong. It shouldn't be that way. It has to be balanced. The product has to be complete. And that's where you try to push the balance wheel. it's not so much the final decision tool as it is a tool to help you to get information, to help you to understand what your client wants and to help you to understand the product. And I had more I had more luck in trying to understand the product and the product vision and the end goal for the product rather than what the client wants. But as you said, the client always wants something really specific. And then, as Mina said, you basically tie in the analytics and you tie in the data to that, and you have a clear case for your client, which may or may not accept it, of course. I hope I provided a relatively suitable answer. Okay. Anything else? I still have a bit of coffee left, so. And it's not a good one. It's from the freaking machine. Okay. Once again, thanks everybody. Thanks for your patience and time. Thanks everyone product community and the Roadmaps conference team. Yeah, Lena, thank you for being with me through the pain and suffering of coaching.
Thank you that you are lead us through this road and how the coaching can be challengeable for people, because that is something that is just maybe strange and new for people, and they maybe have a lot of questions, but now just waiting for some things to be more clear. Okay,
Yeah,
we have maybe something new. Thank you very much. Okay, this is just a feedback. I will also want to thank you for all participants here, and to share with you now in the chat voting link for a Menti, just to give us a short feedback about the presentation and in 3 words, but it will be very important for us to receive it. So take time, few seconds, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, I'll also be available in the chat, so you can find me in the breakout room and ping me if you have any questions or have any ideas what to add behind my name. So some new titles found in Agile, so that would be great.
We have one more comment from, I feel like coaching is also a great tool to truly instill a culture of co-creation in your team.
Yeah, yes? That's great, Simonetta. Yeah, that's great. We had a quick chat on LinkedIn. Really interesting thing that Simonetta does. So go for it, read it, and contact her also. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, the link for voting is in the chat. Enjoy it in the rest of the day, and join us for the next session.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.